You know, I've thought a lot about it. I've never been back up to Lost Lake since that day. But I was married at the time, and we took her son, Josh, and his friend, and James, and then my partner, Scott Walker. I was able to find a way up there again. Only this time the roads had kind of washed out. James was right with me. But unbeknownst to me, James ran through the woods. He wanted to surprise us when we got there. And I hear Josh scream, "James." And we immediately ran and saw Josh, and he was just in shock. He said, "James went over the waterfall." James had been standing in the stream with his back to the waterfall, and he lost his footing and slipped face down into the stream and went over. I immediately went to the edge and looked over, and he was laying prone on a huge boulder. His face was just covered with blood. His leg was at a funny angle. I thought he was dead. And he was conscious, but obviously going into shock. When I found him, his jaw was in the back of his throat. He'd broken both mandibles in about 10 places. And his femur, I could tell, was broken. And I was sure he had internal injuries. Had his leg stabilized, got him in the stretcher, and just kept talking to him because I didn't want him to go out. I had to keep talking to him because I knew he was going to be in shock. It was a tough trek, but we got him up to the top, and I could see there was a canoeist on the lake. We paddled him across Lost Lake back to the gathering spot where we had started. But there were some people there. And like I say, James was awake, but not saying anything. He was just kind of murmuring. I could tell he was in pain, but I kept him awake and just kept talking to him.
It was back in 1984. I was in my second year at Western, and my brother was in his first year. Lost Lake is situated in a bunch of ridges in the Chuckanuts, and to get there we were coming from the south on the east side off of this ridge, and we got up to the lake finally and had to climb down this steep ridge to get to it. And as we got down close to the water, we could hear a few people coming up in a canoe up to where we were. Looked in there, and there was a little kid in the bottom of the boat laying there. He had a broken leg. He was bleeding all over. He was bleeding out of his ears. His jaw was broken. We grabbed the paddles from the canoe and cut a couple corners off the bottom of my sleeping bag, and we had a hammock made in about, it was less than a minute. My brother and I helped these two gentlemen to get the kid up the ledge on the lake, and we carried him up the trail quite a ways towards the car, which was probably about a half mile away, until they got to the point where just the two of them could carry the boy out.
So we put James in the back of that little Datsun station wagon and drove down until we met the aid car. And James went into surgery for about 8 hours. Came out and he had pins through his leg, and they had sewed his spleen back together. He had broken his spleen. They had wired, the hard part was putting his jaw back together. He lost several teeth, but you know, he's looking pretty good today. He survived it all. But so in a nutshell, that was the worst day of my life.
Anyway, we finished our camping trip, and the next day we looked at my friend's newspaper, and there was a small article about the kid having fallen off this waterfall. At this point in time now, I've probably been up there 80 or 90 times. You know, whenever I'm on the east side of the lake where the waterfall is, I almost always go take a look at it and kind of wonder how a kid could live.
You know, 4 or 5 years I'd have nightmares. You know, wake up in a sweat, see that whole thing happening in my head. But it's been many years. You know, it doesn't have that effect on me anymore. Every once in a while, I'll notice a scar on James' lip, and I'll remember.
You know, I didn't know if the kid really lived or not. I knew he'd gotten stabilized in the hospital, but he had internal injuries, and I really didn't know. So after telling a story for 30 some odd years, I ended up telling my daughter, Clea Taylor, this story. She told me that somebody just told her a very similar story. Went and grabbed her phone and pulled out Facebook, and yep, it's the same story I told her over the years, except in the first person. So I found out who this person was, James Hardesty. That evening I went down to the Green Frog. There's a bar downtown that James owned. Asked the bartender if that was James, because I didn't know what he looked like. And she said yes, so I asked him if he could come over and sit down and talk to me for a moment. And you know, he looked at me, and I could see in his eyes, who the hell is this guy? You know, what does he want? You know, but he was very polite. I told him the same story, except it was a little different this time. He sat quietly, you know, the whole time. And as I recall, he didn't say anything until at the end. When I told him, you know, I had told the story so many times, but I never knew the end of the story. Until now. He said, I'm here now, and I'm doing fine. And he shook my hand, and he gave me a big hug. I may have shed a tear for the kid after the accident, but I didn't have problems telling the story, I know. Now it seems I can't make it through the story.
James and I talked about it once. But, hey, you want to go back up there? Yeah. But we never did. We're lucky. We had this incident happen. Our lives are good. We're all healthy. We're all still here.
You know, I'm not a person that I don't think I really believe in fate, but I think that a lot of things happen. They just happen. I don't know, but at that point, I know if there's fate, that was it.
When something happens, it's like throwing a stone in a lake. There's a ripple. And that ripple may end up a mile away, and it may end up doing something that you would have never estimated or thought of.
It made that whole place a special, you know, special in my heart. Yeah.
We just don't know. The stories are all there, but the ripple doesn't necessarily hit us. You know, we might be in a different lake.
This is my first time back. It's a little surreal today. You just never know when an ordinary day is going to turn into something that's a life milestone, a marker.
Is this the stream?
This is it. Yes, I've never seen it not flowing.
Not any water in it.
No.
Huh. Oscar,
Don't slip now.
Holy, how did I get down there?
Right?
Well, you know, there's a trail that goes down there. I'll go down there for scale. The roots are
And you know,
unkind.
at that time too, I don't think this trail was in. It was really hard to get here.
Which trail?
Oh, shit. My knee gave out coming down there.
Don't do that.
I just took too big a step. 6,
That's
12,
probably pretty close to that.
24, 36. It's about 40 feet.
Yeah. I didn't have a lot longer. If they hadn't got me out of here as quickly as they did, I wouldn't have made it. But just the improbability of living through this is close enough. Kind of in awe of it, really. If I had died, it would have been a pretty place to do it. Yeah, my mom, I lived with my mom most of the time. So yeah, she was there a lot. was not her favorite day, April 25th. Not her favorite day. They had to ask her for a recent photograph of me so they could reconstruct my face. It'd be a terrible thing for any parent to be asked. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird being down here. I have to imagine that I, at some point, was looking up from here before, but I don't remember. The important part is he got me out of here. Threw on that cape. I mean, you really got to be some sort of hero to jump down here. And my brother said he jumped. Just planted his feet on about 4 trees on the way down. Got down here in a matter of seconds. I mean, it's a bummer to not be able to recall childhood like most people are able to. Unless I actively think about something, I forget it pretty easy. I really have an out of sight, out of mind brain, which is helpful in some aspects of life, but difficult in others. You know, I talked to my grandfather. He's 96, he'll be 97 in February. Man, he remembers everything. I wish I had that.
Would be nice to know whose canoe that was, though.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they got their paddles back.
Yeah, it was a pretty special moment, though, when you came and found me. That was nice. It was neat to see him get closure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that he cared for so long.
Yeah.
It meant a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only a couple people who could have found me that way.
Yeah.
It was a special moment.
Yeah, it was just strange because until that, it was an exciting story for me, and you know, I never realized that I needed the closure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness it had a good ending.
We're glad you turned out okay.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Every chance I get on something high, really. I like looking over the edge.
Yeah.
I like looking over the edge.
Just remember, I'm not sure I could carry you up the next time.